You really thought you could hide $30,000 from me? Vivien's voice crackled over the phone, dripping with smug satisfaction. I froze, my hand clutching the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The bustling airport terminal faded into background noise as my mother-in-law's words sank in. What are you talking about, Vivien? I managed to choke out, my heart racing. Oh, don't play dumb, Mara. I know all about the little nest egg you and Joel have been squirreling away. It's only right that I get my share. My name is Mara, and I had just stepped off a plane from the most successful business trip of my career. Now, in an instant, my world was crumbling around me. Vivien, that money isn't yours. Joel, and I worked hard for that dash. Joel is my son. She cut me off. What's his is mine. You do well to remember that, dear. The line went dead. I stood there, stunned, as travelers rushed past me. My phone buzzed again, a text from Joel. We need to talk. Come home now. The drive home was a blur. I burst through the front door to find Joel pacing in the living room, his face a mask of anguish. Is it true? I demanded. Did your mother take our savings? Joel ran a hand through his hair. Mara, I can explain dash. Explain what? How $30,000 just vanished into your mother's pocket. She said she needed it for medical bills. I didn't know she takes so much dash. I cut him off. Medical bills? Joel, your mother is healthier than both of us combined. She's playing you. You don't understand, Joel pleaded. She's my mother. I can't just dash. Can't what? Say no? Set boundaries? Protect our future? Joel's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Mara. I'll talk to her. We'll get the money back. But I knew better. This was just the beginning. Vivien had always seen our success as her personal piggy bank, and now she'd crossed a line. As I looked at Joel's defeated expression, I realized I was facing a war on two fronts, against Vivien's entitlement and Joel's inability to stand up to her. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. No, Joel. We'll talk to her together. This ends now. I sat at my workbench, twisting delicate silver wire into an intricate pendant. The repetitive motion usually calmed me, but today my hands trembled with barely contained anger. Mara, honey? Joel's voice drifted from the doorway. Can we talk? I set down my pliers with a sigh. About your mother stealing our money? Or about how you let her? Joel winced. I know I messed up, but we've worked so hard to build this life together. Remember when we decided to combine our talents? The memory softened my anger slightly. 3 years ago, Joel had left his corporate job to manage our fledgling jewelry business. His business acumen and my designs had proven a powerful combination. We've come so far, I admitted. But your mother seems determined to drag us back down. Joel nodded, his expression pained. I know. It's just, she's always been like this. Even when I was a kid, she'd spend money we didn't have. Dad enabled her right up until the divorce. And now you're doing the same? I said, more gently this time. I don't want to, Joel insisted. But every time I try to set boundaries, she guilt-trips me about all she's sacrificed raising me alone. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivien. Darling, I simply must have that Hermes bag we saw last week. Be a dear and transfer $5,000. I showed Joel the message. His face fell. See what I mean? It never stops. We can't keep giving in, I said firmly. We have our own future to think about. Joel nodded slowly. You're right. I'll talk to her. But as he left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Vivien had sunk her claws too deep into our lives, our finances. And Joel, despite his good intentions, still struggled to stand up to her. I picked up my tools again, but inspiration eluded me. Instead, my mind raced with calculations. How much Vivien had already taken, how much more she might demand. The delicate balance we'd achieved between our personal and professional lives felt suddenly precarious. One thing was clear. If Joel couldn't set firm boundaries with his mother, I would have to take matters into my own hands. Our hard-earned success and our marriage depended on it. Joel, darling. Vivien's voice echoed through our living room. I simply must tell you about this marvelous cruise I've found. I watched Joel's face tighten as he muted the phone. Mom, now's not a good time dash.
Nonsense.
It's perfect timing. The ship leaves in 3 weeks, and I'll need you to transfer the money right away. I couldn't hold back anymore. Vivien, we've already discussed this. We can't keep funding your extravagant dash. Oh, hello, Mara. Vivien's tone cooled instantly. I'm talking to my son about family matters. Perhaps you could give us some privacy? Joel's eyes met mine, pleading. I nodded tightly and left the room, but stayed within earshot. Mom, Mara and I can't afford to send you on a luxury cruise right now, Joel said, his voice strained. Can't afford? Don't be ridiculous. I know how well your little business is doing. Our business, Joel corrected. And yes, we're doing well, but we have expenses, investments dash. More important than your mother's happiness? Vivien's voice quavered dramatically. I could practically see Joel crumbling. No, of course not. But maybe we could find a compromise. 10 minutes later, Joel emerged from the living room, looking defeated. I gave her a credit card, he admitted. But I put a strict limit on it. How strict? I asked, already dreading the answer. $5,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. Joel, that's dash. I know, he said quickly. But it's better than the $15,000 she wanted for the cruise, right? And this way, we can control her spending. I wanted to argue, but the hopeful look on Joel's face stopped me. He truly believed this would solve our problems. Over the next 2 weeks, we watched in horror as Vivien's charges piled up. Designer clothes, spa treatments, lavish dinners. She was determined to live like royalty on our dime. We have to cancel the card, I insisted one evening, staring at the latest statement. Joel nodded, his expression grim. You're right. I'll call her tomorrow. But before he could, Vivien showed up at our door, beaming. Surprise. I've come to thank you personally for my wonderful shopping spree. As she swept past us into the house, I caught a glimpse of several shopping bags from high-end boutiques. The pit in my stomach grew. Joel's attempt to set boundaries had backfired spectacularly. And as I watched Vivien make herself at home in our living room, I realized this was far from over. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for our financial future, with or without Joel's full support. The email from Alessandro, our Italian distributor, glowed on my laptop screen. Mara, Joel, we'd love to discuss opening a boutique in Milan. Your designs are perfect for the European market. My heart raced with excitement. This was the opportunity we'd been dreaming of, a chance to take our jewelry business international. Joel, I called out. Come look at this. He appeared in the doorway, his face drawn. What is it? I turned the screen towards him. Alessandro wants us to open a boutique in Milan. Can you believe it? For a moment, Joel's eyes lit up with the same enthusiasm I felt. Then, just as quickly, the light faded. Mara, that's incredible, but what about my mother? The bubble of excitement in my chest deflated. What about her? Joel sighed, running a hand through his hair. We can't just leave her here. She depends on us. She depends on our money, I corrected, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. This could be huge for us, Joel. We can't let Vivien hold us back. I know, he said, pacing the room. But she's my mother. I can't just abandon her. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. We wouldn't be abandoning her. We'd still support her from abroad. But this is our chance to grow, to build something amazing. Joel nodded slowly, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Let me think about it, okay? We need to consider all the angles. As he left the room, I felt a mix of frustration and determination. I knew this opportunity was too good to pass up, but I also knew convincing Joel wouldn't be easy. I picked up my phone and dialed Eli's number. If anyone could help me strategize, it was my best friend. Eli? I need your advice, I said when he answered. We've got a chance to expand to Europe, but Joel's worried about leaving Vivien. Eli listened as I explained the situation. Mara, he said finally, you need to make Joel see that this move could be good for everyone, even Vivien. Maybe some distance would help her become more independent. I nodded, even though Eli couldn't see me. You're right. I just need to find a way to make Joel understand that. As I hung up, I heard Vivien's voice floating up from downstairs. She was here again, probably with another financial demand. I steeled myself, knowing that the conversation ahead with Joel would be crucial. Our future, and the future of our business, depended on it. The moment Vivien burst into our living room, I knew our plans for Milan were in jeopardy. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of excitement and entitlement that made my stomach churn. "Joel, darling," she exclaimed, ignoring my presence entirely. "I've just heard the most wonderful news from Mrs.
Hawthorne.
You're opening a boutique in Milan." Joel shot me a panicked look. "Mom, we're just considering it. Nothing's decided yet." "Oh, nonsense." Vivien waved her hand dismissively. "It's perfect timing. I've always wanted to live in Italy." The room fell silent. I could practically hear the gears turning in Joel's head as he struggled to find a response. "Live in Italy?" I finally managed to choke out. "Vivien, we're not Dash." "Of course, you'll need me there," she continued, oblivious to our discomfort. "To help set up the new home, to entertain clients." "Oh, it'll be just like old times, Joel." I watched as Joel's resolve crumbled under his mother's enthusiasm. "Mom, I don't think Dash." "Now, don't you worry about a thing." Vivien patted his cheek. "I'll start packing right away. We can look at apartments online tonight." As she swept out of the room, promising to return for dinner, I turned to Joel. "You can't seriously be considering this." He sighed, shoulders slumping. "Of course not. But you know how she gets. Maybe if we compromise." Compromise? I felt my temper rising. "Joel, this move is about our future, our business. We can't let your mother hijack it." I know. He ran a hand through his hair. What if we offer to pay for a short trip for her instead? A month in Italy, all expenses paid. It might satisfy her without committing to anything long-term." I wanted to argue, to point out that giving in to Vivien's demands had never worked before. But the pleading look in Joel's eyes stopped me. "Fine," I said finally. "But this is it, Joel. No more after this." He nodded, relief washing over his face. "I'll talk to her tonight. Make her understand this is a one-time thing." As Joel left to call his mother, I sank onto the couch, a sense of dread settling over me. I knew Vivien wouldn't be satisfied with a short trip. This was just the beginning of her attempts to insert herself into our new life. I pulled out my phone, texting Eli, "Emergency drinks tonight." "Vivien drama again." His response was immediate. "On my way. Bringing reinforcements, wine." I smiled weakly. At least I had one ally in this mess. As I heard Joel's voice rise from the other room, clearly struggling to reason with Vivien, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Our dream of Milan, and the future of our marriage, depended on standing firm against Vivien's manipulations. The sound of Vivien's laughter echoed through our house as Joel and I stood frozen in the entryway. She twirled, showing off a designer dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage. "Oh, darlings," Vivien exclaimed, noticing us. "Isn't it fabulous?" I simply had to have it for my return. Joel's face paled. "Mom, what are you talking about? You were supposed to be settling your debts with that money." Vivien waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, those old things? I decided I deserved a treat after all the stress you two have put me through with this Milan business." I felt my blood boil. "Vivien, that was $30,000. How could you Dash?" "Now, Mara," she cut me off, her tone condescending. "You wouldn't understand. When you reach my age, you'll realize the importance of living in the moment." Joel stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Mom, we gave you that money to pay off your creditors. They've been calling us nonstop." "Oh, pish-posh," Vivien laughed. "They can wait. You two are doing so well, surely you can cover it." I watched as something in Joel snapped.
"No, Mom."
"We can't. And we won't." Vivien's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "He means," I interjected, finding my voice, "that we're done enabling your reckless spending. That money was meant to clear your debts, so we could start fresh in Milan. Without you." The room fell silent. Vivien's face contorted from shock to anger. "Without me?" "Joel, You can't possibly agree with this. Joel took a deep breath. I do, Mom. Mara's right. We can't keep doing this. You've taken advantage of us for the last time. Vivien's eyes narrowed. I see. So this is how you repay me for all I've sacrificed? By abandoning me? We're not abandoning you, I said firmly. We're setting boundaries. Boundaries that should have been set long ago. You ungrateful dash, Vivien began, but Joel cut her off. Enough, Mom. It's time for you to leave. We'll discuss this when you're calmer. As Joel escorted a protesting Vivien out, I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. The confrontation we'd avoided for so long had finally happened, and I knew nothing would be the same. When Joel returned, his face was etched with a mix of pain and resolve. What do we do now? He asked quietly. I reached for his hand. We stand our ground. Together. As we sat there, the weight of what had just transpired settled over us. The climax of years of manipulation and enabling had finally arrived, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Joel's hand trembled as he dialed Vivien's number. I sat beside him, my heart pounding, knowing this conversation would change everything. Mom. Joel's voice was steady despite his shaking hands. We need to talk. Can you come over? An hour later, Vivien swept into our living room, her face a mask of indignation. I hope you've come to your senses about this ridiculous Milan business, she began. Joel took a deep breath. No, Mom. We're going to Milan. But that's not why I called you here. I watched as he pulled out a stack of papers, credit card statements, unpaid bills, and loan documents. Vivien's eyes widened. What is all this? She demanded. This, Joel said, his voice gaining strength, is the mess you've created. The debts you've racked up in our name. The money you've stolen from us. Vivien's face flushed. Stolen? How dare you? I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Joel continued, unflinching. And for years, I've let that fact blind me to your manipulation. But it stops now. He laid out each document, explaining the extent of Vivien's financial abuse. I saw the moment realization dawned on her face, quickly replaced by panic. You can't possibly expect me to pay all this back, she sputtered. No, Joel said quietly. We don't, because we know you can't, but we're also not going to bail you out anymore. Vivien's eyes darted between us. What are you saying? I leaned forward. We're cutting you off, Vivien. No more money. No more credit cards. No more bailouts. You can't do this to me, Vivien shrieked. I'm your mother, Joel. Your family. Joel stood, his resolve visibly strengthening. Yes, you are. And it's because you're my mother that I'm doing this. You need help, Mom. Real help. Not more money to waste. Tears welled in Vivien's eyes, but I could see the calculation behind them. If you do this, you'll regret it. I'll make sure everyone knows how you've abandoned me. Go ahead, I said, standing beside Joel. We're done being manipulated by you. As Vivien's threats and pleas escalated, I saw a change come over Joel. The conflict that had torn him apart for so long seemed to evaporate. He was choosing us, our future, our family, over his mother's toxic influence. It's time for you to leave, Mom, Joel said firmly. We'll be in touch about getting you financial counseling, but that's all we can offer now. As Joel escorted a sobbing Vivien out, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The confrontation we'd dreaded for so long was over. Now, the real work of rebuilding our lives and our relationship could begin. The Milanese sun streamed through our apartment windows as I put the finishing touches on my latest jewelry collection. 6 months had passed since we'd left behind the chaos of Vivien's financial manipulation, and our new life in Italy felt like a breath of fresh air. Joel entered the room, a stack of papers in his hand and a smile on his face. Guess what? We've officially broken even on the boutique. We're turning a profit now. I jumped up, wrapping my arms around him. That's incredible. I knew we could do it. As we celebrated our success, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The stress, the arguments, the heart-wrenching decision to cut ties with Vivien, it had all led to this moment. Have you heard from your mom? I asked gently, knowing it was still a sensitive subject. Joel's smile faltered slightly, but he nodded. She's doing better. The financial counseling is helping. She's even taken a part-time job to start paying off her debts. I squeezed his hand. That's good, right? It's what we hoped for. It is, Joel agreed. It's just different, but better. For all of us. As we stood there, looking out over the Milan skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had faced our challenges head-on, set boundaries, and come out stronger for it. You know, I said, turning to Joel, I think this whole experience with your mom taught us something important. About standing up for ourselves, about the true meaning of family. Joel nodded, pulling me close. You're right. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We've built something beautiful here, Mara. Not just the business, but our life together. As the evening settled around us, we talked about our plans for the future, expanding the boutique, perhaps starting a family of our own. The shadow of Vivien's influence no longer loomed over us, replaced by the bright promise of what lay ahead. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how far we'd come. The pain of confronting Vivien, the difficult decisions we'd made, it had all been worth it. We had reclaimed our lives, our finances, and our relationship. And as for Vivien, she was learning to stand on her own 2 feet, facing the consequences of her actions. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when this all began, but it was the right one. A chance for everyone to grow, to heal, to start anew. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt truly at peace for the first time in years. We had weathered the storm and come out stronger. Whatever challenges the future held, I knew Joel and I would face them together, on our own terms. This was our new beginning, and it was beautiful.